most people got their first role from an internal transfer. So up until recently, there hasn't been a lot of entry level roles. It's less of my opinion and more of my own experience, but also based on several other people's experience or dozens of other people's experience, right? I've coached people and helped them get their first product role. And this is exactly how they did it. So like, it's less of an opinion. But this is what I think. And experience has kind of showed me this. So most people, especially those who've been in product for a while, got their first role from an internal transfer. So up until recently, there hasn't really been any like a lot of companies have started to have entry level roles. So up until recently, there hasn't been a lot of entry level roles. So companies have started to have roles like associate product manager, those types of things. But once upon a time, that was very rare. But it's starting to become more and more common. So I expect this to change over time as that becomes more common. But even now, those roles are common, but they're still largely aimed at like university graduates, less about people who've been, in the industry working for a while. So most people get their first product role via an internal transfer. So they normally get it in their current company, and there's an opportunity inside their current company, and they manage to move into that role. Now, there's a few things that can help you do that. The first one is, and it's what you're already doing, which is to learn as much as possible about product. Join communities, learn those things, go to conferences, learn as much as possible. The other thing is that you've got to make it known that that's where you want to take your career. If people don't know that that's what you want to do and where you want to go, then they're never going to, like when the opportunity comes, they're not going to think about you and be like, hey, and then get you in that role. So there's a part on being able to brand yourself that way, to say, hey, I've been learning all this stuff, and you can find ways to apply it too. So the more you can apply it and actually show that, hey, I know what I'm talking about. I've applied this. I've learned it. I can apply it. I kind of know what I'm doing. I know what the role is. And then also make it very well known that that's where you want to take your career. Now, if you're really lucky, you'll be in an organization and you'll have a manager who supports you and will help you facilitate that move. Not every company is like that. You don't always get that, amazing manager. So as a result, when you're in those environments, obviously you can still try to find something internally. Now, some companies, there isn't any internal opportunities. So I recognize that as well. Your next option is to obviously look externally. Now, when you look externally, you can obviously apply for roles like associate product manager. That would be what I'd be looking for associate product manager roles, and I'd be trying to apply for them. They are the entry level roles for product management, and I'll be trying to get one of them. However, as I said, largely aimed at university, college graduates. It can sometimes be tricky to land that role. My next option, depending on your background, there's a whole bunch of adjacent roles or similar roles that have overlap with the product manager role that you can potentially get into. Now, these roles, depending on your background, some might be easier to get into than others. Now, the reason why these roles, you can get one of these roles, and why I would say try and get one of these roles, is because if you look at most, again, less of an opinion, more actual data. If you look, most people that have got the product manager role, people have come from all kinds of backgrounds, but there's very common roles that the majority of people have come from. Business analyst is one of them. Product analyst is another one. Product marketing is another one. Product design is another one. Engineering to a degree, although more so on the BA side. And then you've also got like roles like product ownership and that type of stuff. But all of those roles are very similar. They're close. There's overlap. And as a result, because there's overlap, it's often easier to go from like a BA to being a product manager, especially internally inside of a company. So one of your options is if you if you can't get obviously try for an associate product manager role, but if you can't get an associate product manager role, you could try and land a business analyst role in a product team in a company, and then look to try and move into the product manager role. Part of it too is like getting yourself into a product team. Like that's a big part of it, because often in a lot of the reason why the BA role is so, why the majority of product managers I know have come from like a BA similar type role. And the reason for that is because you're much closer to the team and engineers and the work, right? The problem, and same with product design. Product design is very similar as well, because when you're in like marketing is a little bit more removed. Like you don't need to work with engineers day to day in marketing. You don't need to like those types of things. Stakeholder management, it's stakeholder management to a degree. But when you're a designer or a business analyst in a team, you're working with stakeholders, you're working with engineers, you're working with the product manager, which is part of it too. Like you get direct exposure to the product manager, and you're like shadowing them in a way. So those roles tend to be the ones where the majority of people come from. And I'll tell you some stories. So somebody that I coached, he got a role as a product marketing manager. He was on the fence about whether he should take the role or not because it wasn't a product manager role. I gave him the same advice. I said, look, a lot of people get into similar roles and then they move across. I asked him this question. I said, is it closer to your goal, or are you taking a step closer to your goal, or are you taking a step away from your goal? And the answer was, I'm taking a step closer to my goal. So it's like, well, is not a step closer better, right? So he took that role, and I would have to look at the actual, like how long it took him. But I believe in about 7 months, he moved into a product manager role in that company. And he's not the only one. I know people who got a product analyst role and they're in it for 12 months, maybe thereabouts, and they moved across. I know people, business analyst role, 12, 18 months, moved across. So my point being that getting a role like product marketing manager or something is not a failure. It's a step in the right direction. And especially if you're in the right company. And he did all the things that I said. He went in there, he kept learning about product management. He made it very known. When he took the role, he made it known that, hey, I want to be a product manager. Like, I'm happy to do this role. It aligns to my skill set, because he came from a marketing background. But he made it very well known from straight away that that's where he wanted to go. He kept learning and growing in that space. He found opportunities to try and demonstrate that he doesn't just like read books. He can actually try and put it into practice. And then, within 7 months, he was in a product manager role. So it's generally easier to get a role internally or transfer internally, because when you're moving externally, they often want to hire for someone with experience, whereas internally they're generally more open to somebody with less experience or no experience, because you're a known quantity. They know you. They can maybe even see if you can demonstrate some of the things, as opposed to moving externally. So again, internally is always generally easier than trying to move externally for that reason.